gentlemen, as you can see.
Olá e bem-vindo ao Como é que se fala? Oi! O desafio de hoje no Como é que se fala é a pronúncia das palavras. Vamos conhecer os participantes de hoje? Diga seu nome e seu nível de inglês.
Fabiano, nível mediano.
Mônica Grana, nível básico.
Felipe, meu nível intermediário.
Vocês querem ver o prêmio de hoje? Vocês estão certos disso? Ai, que prêmio top! Bora jogar? A palavra número 1.
There.
There.
A palavra número 2.
Here.
They are. What?
A palavra número 3.
There.
There.
E aí, descobriu o erro? Bem, que game show top, né? Mas o game show, claro, era fake. Os participantes e suas respostas não eram. E esse erro acontece por causa de uma sequência de problemas. Primeiro, vocês não têm certeza de como se fala aquela palavra, o que leva vocês a ter medo de pronunciar errado. E, por causa disso, vocês acabam evitando o uso de determinadas palavras em inglês. Não entendeu? Fique tranquilo, que até o final do vídeo você vai entender. Bora descomplicar inglês? In today's video, we're going to be looking at a group of words that causes a lot of problems for English learners here in Brazil, and specifically the way in which these words are pronounced. And, funnily enough, native speakers also have problems with these words, but for different reasons. And it's the problem that native speakers have with these words that can be the solution to your pronunciation problem. Somebody who's famous for making lots and lots of grammatical errors with these group of words is no other than everyone's favorite American president, Mr. Donald J. Trump. Or was that Obama? Anyhow, Mr. Trump is famous for making errors with these words. Let's have a look at one of his latest tweets. Yes, they're always playing politics, which is lá sempre fazendo política. Now, the question here is, number one, what is the problem? Now, there, lá, is definitely not the word he wanted to use. And in fact, what he wanted to say was, they are always playing politics. The million-dollar question, Mr. Trump probably has a couple of $1 million hanging around the house, is why did he make that mistake? And the reason he made that mistake is because they are can be contracted to there, T-H-E-Y apostrophe R-E. And there, the pronunciation is identical to la in English, which is also pronounced there. Poor old Mr. Trump. It's not the only time, though, that he's made that mistake. In another tweet, he wrote, there was no collusion. Não houve conspiração. But in this case, he used the possessive adjective T-H-E-I-R, which is like their house or their car, a casa deles or carro deles. What he wanted to write, of course, was there was, não houve, which is T-H-E-R-E. And so, again, these two words are pronounced exactly the same. So, what can we learn from Mr. Donald Trump then, aside from double checking our tweets before we post them and how not to run a country? Sorry, that was mean. Yeah, Trump! What we can learn from Trump is that these three words are all pronounced exactly the same. And when we have words with different meanings and different spellings, but with the same pronunciation, we call them homophones. And if we give you an example with all three in one sentence, you'll be able to hear it quite clearly. Their plane was delayed, so they're staying there in Boston for another day. Now, in the game show, what did we see then? We saw that all three students pronounced the contracted form of they are as they are, when they should have pronounced it as there. And looking at the pronunciation carefully, all of these words are pronounced as if it was th and then air, there. So, homophones can in fact help you to learn the pronunciation of words that sometimes you may have difficulties with. And over my years of teaching, I've noticed that Brazilians tend to have difficulties with the same words. And also that they try to force a difference in pronunciation between words that are in fact pronounced exactly the same. For examples, number 1, I ate 8 brigadeiros. 8 here is the past of eat and the number 8, which are both pronounced the same. Number 2 is my daughter was bored playing the board game. And she was bored, entediada, is pronounced exactly the same as board game. Number 3, I missed the mist in London. Now, the first mist is the past of the verb to miss, sentir saudades. And the second mist is from neblina. And number 4 is our meeting was 1 hour long. Our meeting 1 hour. The focus really of today's video is looking at homophones and also the contracted form of verbs in English. What's the contracted form? That's things like cannot, reduced or contracted to can't, or might have, contracted to might have, or would have done, contracted to would have done. Let's look at them then in groups, and I'm going to give you the contracted form and the homophone that goes with that contracted form. Let's start with the verb to be. Now, we have I am, contracted to I'm. Sadly, there's no homophone for that one. However, we have you are, and that's contracted to your, Y-O-U apostrophe R-E, and it's pronounced in exactly the same way as your, the possessive adjective, your house. You're staying at your family's house this weekend. Your and your. Also, the negative form, which is you are not, and are not can be reduced to aren't, which is pronounced in exactly the same way as chia. Aren't you staying at your aunt's house? What about we are, the contracted form we're, W-E apostrophe R-E, pronounced we're, which is also the same as a weir, which is a part of a river, which is a barrier where the level of the river drops. And, of course, as we saw, they are contracted to their, which is pronounced the same way as their, T-H-E-R-E, and also their, T-H-E-R-E. Next group is the future form with will. Now, lots of my students struggle, have difficulty to say the word I will, the contracted form, which becomes I'll, which is pronounced the same as the word I'll, A-I-S-L-E. Now, when you're getting married, you can say she's walking down the aisle, which is the corridor in the church. Or when you're on a plane, you can be sat next to the window seat or the aisle seat. I'll sit in the aisle seat. We will, contracted to wheel, and your car has 4 wheels. What about he will, which is contracted to heal, and when you hurt yourself, you have to heal. Also, what about you? You will, contracted to Yule, and at Christmas, we wish people Yule tidings, very similar to Merry Christmas, and they're both pronounced the same, Yule and Yule. Finally, we've got the had and the would. These contracted forms are both the same. For example, I had or I would is contracted to I. I'd, the contracted form, is pronounced the same as the word I, a one-eyed pirate. Also, we've got we had or we would contracted to weed, and a weed is also a word for a plant in your garden that you don't want. It's also a plant that is illegal to smoke. Finally, we have the word he would or he had, and it's contracted to heed. And heed is pronounced the same as the word heed my advice, which means take my advice. Bem, espero muito que esse vídeo tenha sido útil para vocês e sempre lembrando que se você quiser, o material complementar está disponível no link abaixo. Falou!